And for more on this, we've reached Sinan Ciddi. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and an associate professor of national security studies at Marine Corps University. So Sinan joins us now from Washington. Thanks so much. We'll get right to it. Another 5 years in office for Erdogan. He did seem to pull away during the presidential runoff. What's your reaction to his victory today?
Well, I mean, many had speculated that he could actually, secure a third term, mainly because given the structural impediments that sort of stand in the way of a free and fair election that could allow an opponent to essentially take the lead from him as president, simply because, as your reporter also just mentioned, the economy is in a terrible state. It is beleaguered by high inflation and high unemployment. You also saw the impact of the earthquake, but also essentially, the level of corruption and dissatisfaction that voters have with the Erdogan government. So, it was a very polarized sort of result. So my initial take is, half the country wants him in barely, and half the country essentially wants him out. And at the end of the day, it's a presidential runoff. Whoever got 50% over the threshold basically took this. And based on unofficial and results which haven't been certified yet, Erdogan does seem to have the essential victory. And so it's a surprise, but it's also not a surprise, simply because a lot of people have been cautioning, saying, look, he could actually maintain hold on power.
And as we say, the Turkish economy is certainly struggling. The country's recovering from the devastating earthquake earlier this year as well. So will these domestic troubles change the way Erdogan leads the country, at least in those first few months back in office?
So this is an unknown. Many are sort of poised, waiting to see if he will return to or reorientate the economy back to what economists have been referring to as orthodox policies, whereby essentially he would have to raise interest rates or exercise some sort of capital control if he doesn't. But Turkey, if it doesn't sort of adopt some sort of orthodoxy, it has racked up a total of close to $700 billion worth of debt, and we could have a balance of payments issue or government default, which could, also have ripple effects in both the regional and the global economy if it's not well managed. So something has to give. And even as we speak now, the Turkish currency itself is finding it very difficult to sort of stay stable against the US dollar or other hard currencies such as the euro. So that is immediately on his plate, and everybody's looking at him, at President Erdogan right now, and thinking, what will he do? Who will his team be? Will he appoint a capable and credible sort of economic team to steer the country out of this mess?
On that note, yes, Turkey is an important political and economic country internationally. The country plays a key role in NATO. So how do you think Erdogan's victory is being viewed on the much wider global stage?
I think it depends which country you are. The Western alliance, traditionally Turkey's NATO and European allies, have all sort of started stumbling and sort of congratulating Erdogan, I would say, basically by holding their noses, because they don't get on with him. They have deep sort of outstanding issues with Turkey, but they feel they have to congratulate him because they have to work with him. But other sort of powers, such as regional entities, such as the Taliban government in Afghanistan, but also the Hamas leadership has congratulated him, as well as I think President Putin at this point has issued a congratulation. So it depends who you are. I think the West's detractors and enemies are much happier today. The West is basically sort of very anxious to see how Turkey or President Erdogan sort of moves ahead with this victory. Is he going to essentially reposition and re-anchor Turkey in its sort of Western sort of leanings, or is he going to chart a much more independent foreign policy that may be a sort of a thorn in the side of the West?
And finally here, take us through what you'll be watching for on this in the coming days.
Well, I'm curious to see essentially what that economic team will look like, because the present finance minister is basically seen to be less than capable or less than competent to be able to sort of take the yoke of the economy. I'm very curious to see if there's going to be a massive shift in economic change. I'm also keen to see if Turkey will move swiftly, as your reporter suggested, in approving and ratifying Sweden's membership of NATO, but also just how Erdogan comports himself domestically in terms of what will his outreach be to the country now that he's in charge of it for the next 5 years.
Sinan, thank you again for your insight on this.
Sure. Thank you.
That is Sinan Ciddi with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies joining us tonight from Washington.